Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And today, we're having Real American on the show to talk about the state of the 2024 presidential election. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Real American Politics. For those that don't know me, I am the creator of Real American Politics, obviously on YouTube, on Twitter, etc. And I would say, first of all, honored to be here with On Point Politics, and I'm here to discuss the current state of the race, like you said. And that's about all I got to say. That's all I got to really say right now.
All right, guys. And so looking at the map, looking at RCP right now, Kamala Harris is just pulling ahead at 1.4% nationally, which is 8 points worse than what Joe Biden was polling at, and is almost a little over 5 points worse of what Clinton was polling at. And so even if there's no polling error, Trump's already ahead. But if a similar polling error happens, she's effectively deadlocked out of the electoral college. Real American, what do you say? What do you make of these current national polls right now for Harris?
Well, for starters, this is the biggest problem the Harris campaign is either not willing to admit or just coping about. It's a fact that Harris needs to win the popular vote by, at the bare minimum, like 3 points, maybe 4, just to barely win the electoral college. And that's like barely winning like 270, and that's it. That's not winning every single swing state. So the fact is, the RCP average right now, it's only Harris plus 1.5. That needs to be like 3 to 4. And that's assuming there's no polling miss, everything's perfect, no issues with the polls. Which, do you really think it's going to be perfect this cycle? Do you really think there's going to be a polling miss in favor of Harris this cycle? That's the biggest problem that the Harris campaign's not willing to admit, at least at the national level. I mean, like you said right here, 2020 was Biden plus 9. He won by what, 4.5?
Yep.
Yeah, so a 5-point miss. If the same miss occurs, which I'm not saying it will, but you're talking about Trump plus 3 or Trump plus 4 in the popular vote. I mean, it's entirely possible there's no polling miss, but even then, that's still a Harris defeat, I should say. Excuse me. But like, she needs to win by 3 to 4 at the bare minimum. And right now, that's not happening.
No, and it's just not. And I mean, you're right. Yeah, there is a similar polling error to before, especially if Trump starts catching up even more as he does in October every single time. It's going to end up being around what I have. I mean, I have 3.5 points right now in my aggregate as of today for Trump. It's a 3.5 point win in the popular vote. And we'll see if that happens. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And we'll talk about it on the show here. But it seems like with my aggregate, which if we look at it, it essentially weighs all the pollsters by the margin, the grade on the margin they got in 2020. So the more accurate they were, the more points they get in the aggregate. So their sample size, including their pollsters as well. So that's also another big thing too, as well as looking at how many undecideds they have. So the more undecideds you have, the less of points you get, and you get more points for having a likely voter screen, which could actually end up pretty much underestimating Donald Trump if I give the likely voter screens more power, because they're screening out a lot of first-time Trump voters, because that's the way the likely voter screens are designed, because they track how many times you voted before. And if you have only voted once or never, you're going to get a lower score on the likely voter screen. And so there are a lot of first-time voters that are coming up for Trump that people are just not looking at. And it's going to cause a very big problem for Kamala Harris if a lot of those first-time voters come out. I mean, I just had Rich on not even that long ago, and he came out with Trump plus 3.7 in the full race with leaners with a third-party ballot. And what's pretty fascinating is I have Trump plus 4.7 in Michigan. And Rich says that Trump always improves towards the end of October, and they're going to re-enter the field again. We'll see what they get afterwards. But things are not looking good for Harris whatsoever. Right now, you see a 3.5 point lead, give or take there. Trump's 49.6 to Harris's 46. In the popular vote, Kennedy's basically at 0. And by the way, Real, you can see right here, when Kennedy endorsed Trump, Harris did pick up some support here. But you saw the second Kennedy endorsed Trump, you saw he did pick up a lot of that vote share. Now, Harris did get some, but Trump got a slightly more than Harris. And you saw here the last bit of Kennedy's support that kind of fell. A lot of them became undecided. And the Atlas poll also really threw off the aggregate too. And so there are some undecided voters still that were going to vote for Kennedy or vote third party or still not sure who they're going to vote for. And it's really a huge issue for the Harris campaign that they can't really reel in any of those undecided voters. What do you have to
Yeah.
say in terms of Kamala Harris, trying to convince, middle voters and like why that hasn't necessarily been successful for her?
Well, this is the biggest problem. This is another problem with the Harris campaign. These voters that are undecided right now, that they're not really going to support Harris at all. If they're undecided right now, do you think that next week they're going to say, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to vote for Harris"? No. More than likely, they're considering other options like Donald Trump, like a third-party candidate like Cornel West, Jill Stein, etc. Because usually the undecideds, they're not going to vote for the incumbent party. And Harris is the vice president right now. So if they're not picking her now, like some might vote for her, but more than likely these voters, they're going to probably break for Trump or not vote. And you look who's actually undecided, that's probably going to happen because a lot of them are Kennedy voters. Plus, what's stopping them from voting for Kennedy on the ballot in like Michigan, for example, where he's still on the ballot there? That's the thing with these undecideds. I don't think they're going to break for Harris. They may not break for Trump, but that's still a loss for Harris at the end of the day.
Yep, 100%. It's still a big loss for Harris. Even the way the popular vote is right now, it's still a major loss. I mean, she's trying to go on Joe Rogan because now Donald Trump's going on. So now, since she's been copying Donald Trump the entire cycle, even by going to the border, now all of a sudden she thinks it's necessary for her to go on Rogan too. And so that's the big problem. She's trying to emulate him and try to recreate his enthusiasm, and it's not working. And if you look at these early vote numbers, I mean, Arizona right now, there's just about 17,000 returned, but Republicans are leading by a massive margin in the early mail in Arizona, like unfathomable margins as of right now. And so this is something really interesting. If we look at New Mexico's returns right now, Democrats are down like 20 something points from 2020, and we still got more to report, but there is a clear massive difference in the early returns in those states as well. And we even see here Donald Trump's team are getting increasingly confident that they will win the election, that the race is over per Mark Halperin. They believe Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina are locks. With them up in Wisconsin, it's checkmate. Yeah, and that's 100% true
Yeah, I
because
mean
Wisconsin, yeah,
that's a big problem with the Harris campaign that yet again they're either ignoring or they're coping about. They really believe the early voting right now in Arizona, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, they have convinced themselves that actually it's all good news for them. It's not. I mean, for crying out loud, in Pennsylvania right now, it's the turnout's so bad that the firewall that they're banking on is be less than 2022, which is a midterm.
yep,
They're banking on a firewall that's smaller than a midterm. And
yep.
that's their problem. And they either won't accept that they're down, or they have successfully convinced themselves that they're actually winning and there's going to be a historical surge on election day, which, yeah,
Which
there's going to be more Democrats voting on election day compared to 22 and 2020, but the majority of Democrats are still voting early. They're not going to magically vote on election day now.
Yep.
And that's the problem that Democrats are just not willing to admit to.
Also, only 20%. If you look at Alice Intel, which is the most accurate pollster from 2020 and internationally in different countries, they have a majority of Republicans voting on election day and like a plurality of Democrats voting on election day. So to say that, oh, Democrats are going to miraculously outvote Republicans on election day, even the most accurate pollsters even saying that, but even more left-leaning pollsters still have Republicans outvoting Democrats on election day. So if they're not putting up the numbers here, they're not going to get it on election day. Now, do I think the election day vote for Trump's going to be smaller? Probably, or
It could
maybe
be.
not. Could be bigger. It depends on how much turnout he gets on that day. But we really got to see, and those new voters, because Rich right now just told me that Trump is up like 47-40 with first time voters in Michigan. Like
Yeah.
he's killing them in Michigan. Now it's only 10% of the electorate, but let's say it's 15 or 20. Let's say that happens, just hypothetically. Let's say it's 15-20. That's going to make all these people ridiculously wrong. And Rich having a Trump plus 3.7 and Michigan's making me feel confident in Trump's chances and very confident in my own forecast. And on top of that, with these early numbers and everything that we're looking at, the fact that Joe Rogan's going to even let Trump go on the podcast, Rogan must have seen the internals and thought to himself, okay, yeah, we got to let him on because this will give him a boost. Because there's no way that if Trump was losing right now, there's no way Rogan would have him on. It would not happen.
I would argue
Also,
that the early voting, like you said, it's the biggest takeaway is not just the raw totals, it's who's actually voting. These
mhm,
are the Republicans are getting their low propensity voters out to vote. That means these people have never voted. They might have voted 30 years ago, but
yep,
outside of that, they don't vote. Well,
Yep.
Republicans, they're getting them out to vote. Look at Virginia. I mean, the updated numbers is like 2-1 Republican for these people.
Man, it's crazy. Virginia is going to be a 2 to 3 point win for Harris,
I mean,
something
this
like
is
that.
just bad because for Democrats, that's the whole point of early voting. Get these low propensity people out to vote. All Democrats are doing, you can look at Virginia's numbers right now. All they're doing is cannibalizing their election day vote. These are people that are going to vote no matter what. They vote in every election, every midterm, every off year, everything.
Right.
That's the problem. That's the biggest issue for Dems that,
Yep.
again, I don't know if they're not willing to accept it. They actually believe they're ahead. I don't know because it's
Look at
just
this.
so bad for them.
Look at the Maricopa County early result returns. Look, 2020 was +4 Democrat. Now it's +16 Republican.
Yeah.
Republicans are almost at 50% in the early vote returns in Maricopa. Now, again, they still got more to count. But if this holds up, Arizona is going to be over 5 points for Trump. It's
Yeah,
going to.
that's entirely possible because Maricopa is the county that will decide everything.
Yeah.
If Trump wins it by a couple points, I mean that's just a blowout.
Even liberal pollsters have found like a 3 to 4 point win in the county when Biden was in the race. I think Solfic USA Today, when they pulled Trump versus Kamala, he's up 4. And I think SoCal Strategies and Red Eagle got like a 5 point lead for Trump in Maricopa back when Biden was the candidate. And I would argue that Harris is less of a fit for Maricopa than even Biden was, period. And look at this. Now, look at this. Look at Nate Silver.
Nate Silver.
Look at that. Now it's tied. All of a sudden, now it's an even race. It's so close. Look at that.
For those that don't know, this guy, this cycle has done like 5 times where it switches from a Trump victory to a Harris victory to a Trump win to a Biden victory. He keeps hedging his bets. And now out of the blue, his mysterious model, they found Trump tied with Harris. Serious question. What has changed in the last week?
I mean, it has gotten better for Trump, but
it's gotten better, but like I'm talking about like fundamentally, there's been no real change.
Fundamentally, with the economy, with a lot of different things, the true fundamentals, nothing has really changed. There's no reason why he would have gone from Trump being up like this to Harris being up to Trump being up like that. Like, there shouldn't be. Maybe you could give him some slack and saying, okay, Kennedy endorsing him maybe does give him a fundamental boost, but like not even. It should have not boosted him this high. I mean, in reality, Trump was always the favorite. Even going back to August, he was still the favorite to win. Even back in August, it was probably going to be like a tied popular vote. He was still up in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania by like a few points. And he was still up in all the Sunbelt states by a couple points, too. He's probably going to win Georgia by like 3-4, Arizona like 2-3. Nevada could have probably been close, and like the Rust Belt would have been close, but he still would have won. But now it's trending against her, and he always catches up even later in the cycle than he usually catches up in the final 2 weeks of October. And he's already starting to catch up now, earlier than usual. So if that really continues, it's going to be a really bad sign for her. Now, going into this kind of expanded battleground map we'll have, I guess our consensus, like Utah, obviously, Idaho, going red. I mean, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, Alaska, Nebraska, except the 2nd Congressional District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, Missouri, South Carolina. We could kind of say those are there. I would even say Iowa and Ohio are
gone.
They're
gone. They're gone.
Like, it's not even likely. Realistically, California, DC, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Vermont are like the only safe states that my model actually has for Harris. But for the sake of the video, we'll put Oregon, Washington, New York, Connecticut, Delaware, Rhode Island, Hawaii, which will be under 15, by the way. It's going to be under 15.
That's definitely a take. I mean, that's the thing with Hawaii, though, with all the fires that happened there. I could see a big shift there, but
it's because it already was trending. It's already been trending 5.10 points Republican.
Oh, absolutely. It's been
popular administration plus a local thing that affected the administration. I mean, that's even worse. I mean, Illinois I could see being there. I'd honestly say Florida. I mean, that's gone too.
Same thing with Texas. I just don't see how at this point in time the problem for Harris's campaign is in Texas she's doing worse with Hispanics. She's doing worse with virtually a demographic. And outside of Austin, there's no parts of Texas that you could argue is going to shift that Democrat in 2024. Yeah, I mean, I don't really see how Texas is that competitive. Same thing with Florida. I mean, Florida's just gone. I don't care what Nate Silver or others say. Trump's going to win the state by like at the bare minimum 5 to 10 points right now.
Yeah,
like bare minimum. And just there's no demographics in Florida that are good for Dems. It's getting more Republican. Look at voter registration. Hell, look at early voting. It gets more and more Republican with each passing day. So I just don't see how any of those flip.
Yeah, even Larry Schreiker, as of right now, just tweeted the results from Maricopa. He just tweeted them, and he said, "Yep, it's Trump +5 plus a lake win." Like literally, and it's like, come on, man. Like seriously, like this is absolutely it's ridiculous, man. The way that people have it, like, oh yeah, she's the favorite in Arizona. Even LTE doesn't even have her winning Arizona anymore. That's how you know that's bad.
Yeah,
Rasmussen apparently has got a Michigan poll coming out very soon. They just dropped a PA +3 poll, and they underestimated. I actually think their final PA poll was Biden +4, and they underestimated Trump by like 3 points. And they have Trump +3 right now, and they have Trump +3 right now with their latest poll, and I have Trump +5 in the state. So like everything is lining up with what I have right now. And looking at like Maine second and Maine's first, those are gone. I would say as of right now, I'd feel confident that she's winning New Mexico and Virginia, but they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to be close.
I really think for like New Mexico, I still have doubts about. I just the problem with New Mexico is Albuquerque. Like you could do better with Hispanics. Just the problem is the white vote in New Mexico. It is way too liberal at this point. Now, could that change? Absolutely, but if whites stay the same in New Mexico, I don't really see how it could get closer. But I just don't really see how she could lose the state.
Oh
But
yeah,
again,
if whites stay the same, then she's not losing New Mexico.
that's a problem. Like she
But yeah.
yeah,
But
she
Virginia is moving Republican by a long it's gonna be close. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be within 5 at this point, probably even within 3 by the time we get to the election. I think it's gonna be really competitive and people are they're gonna be sweating the state. They're gonna be sweating it. Right now, I mean, North Carolina and Georgia, I have them pretty confidently going to Trump right now. She's not doing well enough with non college whites. She's underperforming with African Americans by a decent amount. And they have pretty hefty electorates in Georgia and North Carolina. So for her to be underperforming with those demographics aren't very favorable to her right now. I mean, that's just not a good play. And the problem she has is Nevada and Arizona. Those two have a lot of Hispanics who she's also underperforming with.
and you look at Nevada, just the voter registration there is bad. It's not talked about because Florida is just even worse for Dems, but Nevada voter registration is a disaster. It seems like every day gets more and more Republican, and
What is it
now
looking like there now? What
now
is
the
it
cu-
now?
now the culinary unions, which basically run Nevada, they're outright admitting that yeah, Kamala Harris is probably going to lose here. If the
Yeah.
culinary union's
And they've
saying that,
always
it's probably
they've
over.
been right. They've been right a lot. Rich talked about this on the show. He said, "Oh, in 2010 when Harry Reid won his seat, the polls had the opponent winning, and they were like, nope, the polls are wrong." And then in 2012, they're like, Barack Obama's going to win here. 2016, they said, "Oh, Hillary might have to come here," and then she did what she had to do. And then they were like, "Oh yeah, she won, and she would win." And then Biden, they were like, "No, Biden's going to get the state this time." Because at that point, they were confident Trump was doing so well with Hispanics that they were going to win Nevada. But the culinary unions were like, nope. And then now they're like, yeah, Trump's going to win Nevada. They're like,
They're pulling the fire alarm again. If they say something's going to happen, that probably means it's going to happen. That's Nevada politics in a nutshell. It's the ring machine. If they're saying it's done, they're probably done.
yeah,
But yeah,
like
so the
really.
Sun Belt at this point, like Nevada, still I have questions about, but right now I don't see how Harris can win Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and even then she doesn't. Trump doesn't even need Nevada to win. That's another problem. She can win in Nevada, but it's not enough. He just needs one Rust Belt state, and he's the next president.
Nope, 100%. And that's the thing. He's already at 268. And I have Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. I mean, I have those going over 5 points. Now, is that going to be correct? We'll see. But if he's winning the popular vote by the amount I'm having him winning by, he's going to have to be winning those by over 5.
Now, I would argue that if I would not be surprised if there is a big swing in the Rust Belt for a bunch of reasons. I'm not saying Trump's going to win Wisconsin or Pennsylvania by 5 points or whatever, but Democrats, I would argue of all the swing states, the Sun Belt, the Rust Belt, I would argue they have the biggest problems actually in the Rust Belt because there's two key demographics in the Rust Belt that Harris is doing awful with that not enough people are talking about: union households and Catholic voters.
Yep.
She is a complete collapse with both of them. I mean, union voters, they're breaking like 10 points to the right for Trump. It's shifted that much in just 4 years. Catholics are just shifting like 20 points Republican.
Yep.
I mean, that alone makes Wisconsin R+5. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you can't afford as a Democrat to lose both the unions and Catholics. That's a double whammy that will cost you Wisconsin, Michigan, even
Yep.
Pennsylvania. And that's not even talking about the fact that Jewish and Muslim voters, which they make up decent shares of vote in Michigan and Pennsylvania, they're moving away from Democrats as well. I mean, there's no positives here. You cannot name a single demographic that actually makes up a share of the vote that's actually shifting Democrat. You can't name one. Every key demographic is shifting Republican right now. Not a single one is shifting the opposite direction.
Yep. 100%. Even like, oh, college whites are going to miraculously shift left. No, it's not going to happen. His polls, his polling's always been underestimated with them. He is going to improve with college whites. Like, it is
Exactly.
going to happen.
The only group that Harris might do better with are like post grads, people that have every degree known to man. They like people that work for the government. Those might be the people she does better with. The problem is they make up like 1% of the vote, like
Yeah,
5%.
yeah, that's the problem for them.
And
Now, Nebraska's second. I'm kind of curious on your take on this because my model actually still has it as Harris +2, even though Trump's winning the popular vote by 3.5. It's trending so hard to the left that it's like a Harris +2 district.
the problem for Trump is it's Omaha.
Yeah.
You have a lot of the financial sector in the city, and those are the type of people Harris would probably do better with. That's the one issue with Omaha. Now, I think Don Bacon could win, but I
Yeah.
think right now Trump's going to lose Nebraska's second, just for the simple fact those are the type of voters you would probably think would shift towards Harris. The 5%, like people that work in the insurance industry, those
Mhm.
people probably shift Harris, but that's about it. So I don't know, but I think Omaha right now, or I should say Nebraska's second, it's probably shifting towards Harris right now. But I could see Trump, if it's really bad for Harris, I could see him winning it. I just wouldn't put much money
Yeah,
on
like
it.
if it ends up because right now, remember, I have Trump +3.5. If the polls get worse, it's going to be even worse than that, depending on how the party ID breaks and like when I reweigh all the polling. So hypothetically, if it's like a Trump +5 national environment, he probably does take Nebraska second with him. As of right now, I do have the model. It does go lean blue. And New Hampshire and Maine, they also go lean. They go lean blue too. In my
I agree
thing,
with that. I agree that
yeah,
Maine I could see very close. I still think in 2020 was a fluke there.
yeah,
But
it was. I think it was too. And I
New
think
Hampshire, the problem is you just got too many people from Boston moving there. They're all moving there and they're taking their voting habits with them. So I
mm,
just don't see how New Hampshire really. It could shift Republican, but I don't think it's enough.
the problem is the polling is the right now when I look at the polls there and looking at the party breakdown, the electorate there is actually like decently plurality, like independent, and actually Republicans outnumber Democrats in both 2016 and in 2020 in self-identification for both candidates. And so the problem with them polling with like D plus favorable electorates in New Hampshire and Maine while having independents in the low 20s is because that's not what happens at all, actually, in those two states. That isn't what happens at all. So I do think the polls are going to be heavily wrong there again. And even when you look at the crosstabs for a lot of these polls, Trump is competitive or even up in southern New Hampshire, where a lot of those like Boston, Massachusetts people will be. Now, is the state going to trend left? Yes, I think that is going to be true. And I think it is going to be because of them. But I don't think Trump's going to win the popular vote by 3.5. And New Hampshire is still like D+4, D+5, like some people out there are saying. I don't think that's true at all. I think Trump has to win the popular vote by like maybe 4 to like even have a shot at winning it. But as of right now, I do have it. Literally, it's like Harris +1.1. It's like a really close state. It's very, very close. And Minnesota's the final one here. I have it tilt them right now. I have it very close. I don't know what your take it is on it, but my opinion is if I was going to be +18 for Trump, which is what my model has, and if Wisconsin's +6, Minnesota can't be Harris +3 or +4. It's got to be within a point.
So
And
I will say that I personally believe Virginia's gonna be more closer than Minnesota. I really believe that. I think this cycle we're gonna see it the opposite, where Virginia's actually closer. But I could see the argument of Minnesota because you do got Iowa, you got Wisconsin shifting right. If they're shifting right, you're probably going to see the same thing in Minnesota. These states don't just magically vote against each other. But at the same time, it's one of those things where Minnesota is not really the same state as it was 10 years ago. Minneapolis keeps growing. It's demographically way different. I still think Trump could pull it off, maybe. But I think she does worse than Biden 2020, obviously. But
yeah.
I still think she wins it by like 4 to 5 points right now.
Okay.
Wisconsin, I have like R+2. Same with Pennsylvania, Michigan R+1. It just with Minnesota, I just don't really trust it right now politically. But maybe he pulls off the upset there. I don't know for sure, but
Right. And so, guys, this is it right now. This was our conversation about the state of the race in the 2024 presidential election. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe for more content just like this. And make sure to subscribe to Real American as well. He's doing his own content as well. And any closing comments as of right now?
follow me at Real Political Data on Twitter, and same thing with Real American on Twitter. And of course, follow the YouTube channel Real American. And yeah, thanks for having me on today.
All right, guys. Everyone have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. Make sure to go ahead and also check out betonline.com in the description down below, where you can bet on the presidential race, the Senate races, and the House races as well. Everyone have a great rest of your day.